We start our live podcast here on Bridges Live Black Coffee Conversation. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Black Coffee Conversation that we have with our collective group. Today is Healthy Black Men, which is one of our conversational groups and groups that we love to have. And we like to talk about the things that are going on, things that affect black men, things that affect the black community, and things that just affect men as individual, and which is fascinating. And I want everyone to introduce themselves. For those people who have never joined us before, join us now. You can always reach us on iHeart and iTunes Radio, or the YouTube channel, Dr. Paul Dyer Grandmaster, and we'll go from there. So please introduce yourself. Chad, you're up.
I'm Chad Desjardins, the owner of Next Level Performance, gym here in Wapaton in Breckenridge. And just always honored to be around you fellas and having this discussion.
Thank you. And Woodsy, our political leader here, he is our official Black Obama on our panel. You need to get past that. That's going to suck.
Now you're going to put me in those shoes to fill.
Right.
Yeah, David Woods. I am a local politician in North Dakota, and also an educator. I'm an English teacher.
And Big Chris Smooth here, he thinks he's still got a jump shot on him, but we're not too sure about that. But okay, Chris, introduce yourself.
Chris, a.k.a. Uncle Smooth, motivational speaker, positive energy coach. Always a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen.
Excellent. And Malik, he's probably our most militant person in the room, but, you know, he tries to hide under that little beard of his, but it shows through when he starts talking about systematic systems. Go ahead, Malik.
Definitely. I got to thank my father for that. Malik means owner and operator of Active World Scholastic, based here in Brooklyn, New York. Once again, it's always a pleasure to join you, gentlemen.
And Mr. Wesley Webb, and he's the president of 100 Black Men Baltimore, just doing some great things, and one of our conservative people, I would say, on the group. But go ahead, Wesley, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm glad to be a part of this group and always talking with you guys, learn something to do, and also blessed to be trying to mold the next generation of black men. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's very important, to hear new ideas and see which direction we can go. Glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
You know, we always have multitudes to talk about every month, and we're going to have this panel every month. So if anyone wants to join us, just inbox one of these guys here and say, hey, I have something to say. Or just introduce yourself to whoever you want to talk to and say, you guys never touched on this, because this is not our conversation of us six. This is a we conversation of we many. And I definitely want to stress on that, because black healthy men need to start having conversations, and this is why I call it the Black Healthy Conversation. And it's surprisingly that not enough black men are talking. And why do you think that is?
I think one degree is that, we're held to a standard of strength. So sometimes we just take and bear a lot of things on our shoulders, problems, issues, all those kind of things, and we just don't really talk. And I told my wife the last time that we had the couple conversations, it's almost like having therapy with you guys, because we got like-minded people, and you're able to open up and talk to everybody in this group, and it feels good to get that off your chest, talk about the issues, personal issues, public issues, and I think more and more black men and more men actually need to do that.
Yeah, I think that's right, Chad. One of the things that we've been talking about as far as being barriers is the trust factor. One of the things is, as black men, we have to be able to trust one another, and also not be so caught up if you're being vulnerable at some type of point. I think being vulnerable sometimes is a good thing, where if you're not sure about your direction, some other guy can more or less lend you that advice as far as get you back on track. And so that's one of those things. So I think as far as those conversations, trust is going to be one of those major factors in helping us to move forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also we grew up in a culture where it wasn't cool for men to like reveal their feelings, kind of, be transparent. We all had to have that rough exterior. And I'm, thankful that now that's changing. Men can actually, be honest and be real. Being sensitive is not negative. It's not looked down upon, right? And I think that's important. Like I say this all the time. I got this theory: iron sharpens iron. So you need like-minded men to get together and just exchange ideas and exchange wisdom. Yeah, that's what's missing now.
I definitely agree with these gentlemen. I think vulnerability is big, and very similar to what Malik said. When you're growing up, you're taught not to talk so much. You talk too much. Stop talking and do. And oftentimes, when we don't ask questions and we just jump into things, we make mistakes. Whereas if you ask questions, you would avoid a lot of those mistakes. But we were taught a lot of times growing up, stop talking so much and just do what you need to do as a man.
Yeah.
Or man up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a trial and error type thing. You start making all these mistakes and then you just learn from them. But if you would have just reached out and talked to your brother on the side there, might have saved you some time.
No question.
Woodsy?
Well, I look at sometimes, how a lot of us was told, just to put your head down and keep going. Whatever kind of conflict you get into, put your head down, keep going. And although that has built up a lot in us to be able to persevere, that also kind of, depending on where we're at, even geographical location, that put us on an island. And, we didn't feel that this brother next to me went through those same types of conflicts, and we didn't know where to get help. And I think there is an aspect of vulnerability, but I also think there is a thing where, every man, we've turned ourselves into our own island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
You know what's interesting about that is that only in our community. Because you think about athletes, to get to that next level, you got one-on-one trainers, you got a whole community out there helping you. In other communities, if their focus is academic, they got tutors, they got Saturday, workshops that kids are going to get them to that next level, right? It's put in our mind that we have to do it by yourself, right? No one can help you. Right? Don't reach out for help because then you're considered weak or vulnerable, right? We got to kind of break that mentality because that's one of the things that's holding us back.
With that holding us back, I actually think it's doing more than just holding back. And I don't know if I can put this into a metaphoric phrase, but it's not just holding back like a dam, holding back water. It's doing so much more. It's like it's poisoning the water. Like a dam just holds back water. But if you can put another phrase in there where it's poisoning the water, even if it seeps through the dam, it still has been infected by the poison of thought. And that, you're right, Malik, that only happens in our own personal community with our own personal self. Because no other community, and we were laughing off air about the community we're not going to mention, Smooth, that they don't think that way, right?
Well, that's why it's so important for us to have these type of conversations where we can help a younger group, and possibly if they're watching, listen, we see some older guys who are bearing their feelings. They're talking about some things that can assist us. So we have to consistently see this where we had not seen it in the past, and we frowned upon it, because oftentimes we talk about like that dam, I see it as a volcano. We keep things inside. Sooner or later, they're going to erupt. And I always use the phrase where we don't tap into all of our emotions. Our default is always anger. I can go around this entire panel and I probably can catch where all of us have, rather than using the emotion of compassion or sadness, we default to anger, where we come across as angry, and from people on the outside looking at us, that's negative. What we want is another emotion, we haven't been able to do it.
You know, I think that's maturity. I think that's emotional maturity. And we have to get to that level. Listen, I just watched Hamilton the other day, right? We watched it again, my wife and I. And back in the days, they had duels. If men didn't agree, or if you questioned their word or their manhood, they challenged you to a duel. And guys was dying for that, right? So they evolved from that. But it actually started there. Back in the old Wild, right, they had shootouts. So there was definitely a segment of, you know, the population that did that, but then they evolved from that. Right. They used their words, you know, and they were able to navigate the issues without the emotions, without the violence.
But how many of us evolve? Because you talk about an athletic mentality. I think about when I was a younger athlete, from the age of 15 to about 35, I would not allow myself to cry. I was sad. I was upset. I would get angry rather than crying. And the only time I would cry, it was maybe after we lost the game, and that was acceptable because you can cry then. Because it's good during that time period, but any time else, you can't cry.
I also think there's another aspect of that too. I mean, anger, pain, all those type of things. When we're growing up and going through those situations, I think as men we use that as a fuel and a motivation. So it drives us to do different things and not be in those current situations that we had dealt with before. So sometimes anger and pain, I think, to me, is a good indicator of how to move forward and grow and mature and deal with those issues. You kind of got to have that to motivate yourself, I think.
No doubt.
But here's the thing: as a martial artist and as a what you call combative arts, if I can get you angry, I got you. I got you off your game. I got you. I can move you. I can direct you. Your energy's all screwed up. You done, son.
Well, Doc, that's the main reason a lot of people aren't successful. When you look at sports, again, we think about the athletic prowess. We think about how good someone is on the court or on the field. But it really comes down to your mental fortitude. The winners and the best players are mentally tough.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that because you're successful way on the field, on the court. What happens off the court? What happens off the field? Like, you have an interaction with your wife or your girl. Your first instinct is violence, right? Because that's what's been accepted, right? We haven't really shown, like, the other, attributes, compromise. Like, really expressing your emotions without the violence, right? And listen, I'm guilty of that. I remember, coaching my son and telling him, yo, don't cry. Don't let him see your weakness. Man up. It took me, counseling to kind of get over that. Like, that's not, it's okay for him to express his emotions, right? But that was conditioning. And we all kind of go through that, that conditioning. Like, you got to be hard 24/7, son.
Well, you know what, Malik? You have to be hard 24/7. Like I said, the true winners understand, listen, I need to be tough when I'm on the court. I need to be tough when I'm on the field. But when that's over, I need to be able to, confide in my wife, be with my children. Those are the true winners, in my opinion.
And I think that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I'm just gonna speak personally. I mean, when it was time, when I was 33, and it was time to put the ball down because things were snapping, it was very hard for me to make that transition. And I'm gonna go back to Malik said about the duel because it just made me chuckle because I found that as black men, when someone called you out, you got to come see me, right? I mean, whether it was on the court or on the field, and we just don't see that anymore. We don't see where it's like, you got to come see me, we're going to do this, and then we're going to walk away from it, okay? Right now, it's like, we don't do that. We keep the anger within. We've been conditioned to keep that anger within in a multitude of ways, and now we feel like we don't have any outlet. So then when we have those interpersonal communications, like they're negative, You know what I mean? When we step off the field, when we step off of, we were trained to get our anger out in different ways. But when we have those personal communications, it's like, how do we actually have those? Because I can't show anger towards my daughter. I can't show, violent anger. I can't show violent anger towards my wife. So there's a missing link there where we had a way, then we've been conditioned, and that way was kind of taken away from us, and now we're expected to have these interpersonal communications without any mentors to do it. You know what I mean? Like very few, without very few mentors, very few examples of people that actually have those interactions. It is, I kid you not, it is surprising to me to watch Chad and his daughter have those interactions, and people look at both of them like, wow, look at that big old man over there, just like have that girl wrapped around his finger. And I walk around and I have my daughter, and I can tell those interactions, it's not there. It's not commonplace for them. There's not enough of us.
But when we see those and we admire a guy like Chad,
right,
we can be a winner because of that. Now, let's take Kobe Bryant, for example. We knew Kobe was a fierce competitor when he played for the Lakers. He wanted to win at all costs, wouldn't talk to people at certain occasions, hold grudges, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
We gained another level of love for this guy after his career, seeing how he interacted with his daughters, and he explained to us on many occasions, listen, that was Kobe the player, Black Mamba. This is Kobe Bryant the father.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I missed the segment, but I'm going to make up for it, and I'm going to make sure my daughters love me, show some love to my wife, and that's when you say, that's the type of guy we really love and endure.
Which one did they televise? Which Kobe?
Right. Yeah.
Televised the Kobe ball player, because that's what he was. But he's gotten so much accolade after the fact with that Mamba mentality and dad girl and all those type things that came about because of this one guy here.
Right. And that's part of the conditioning. Like, look at Kobe. Look at Jordan. Jordan, right. His daughter had him wrapped around, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There were all these positive interactions with all these players and all these people that are looked up to by our youth. They didn't show that. They showed the fierce competitor, the angry person, the guy who, like, I rallied my team and beating my chest and doing all and gritting his teeth or whatever. They didn't bother to show the other side. That's part of the conditioning that I think we're talking about, where I don't know if they don't want to show it.
So does the condition create the narrative, or the narrative creates the condition?
Both.
Yeah, I think it's the narrative. Because listen, we're all like athletes are considered warriors. Right? Athletes are considered warriors. And going back to Roman times, you got in that Coliseum, you fought to the death. Right? And that was, applauded, and people made their riches that way. They didn't show, after that, after you go home, how you interact with your wife and your children, and your neighbors. Nobody cared about that. You were a product. You were there to entertain us. And once the entertaining was done, we're done with you. So, I like the fact that now they're mentioning Kobe with, his children and his daughters and girl dad. That's great. But our generation, we were introduced to, like, Jordan. The sniper, the assassin, all course, winning all course.
But he took some L's for that, too. We didn't go over the L's that he took for, quote-unquote, winning at all costs. And he made it clear in The Last Dance. Obviously, I may have hurt some feelings, but that's how I was during my playing days. If you look back, he made that clear. That's how I was during my playing days.
But I think we're falling into a trap, and I wrote it down because the whites is, and I'm gonna first ask Wesley this, and I have a reason why I'm gonna ask Wesley, and I want you all to answer. The black angry man. Why do whites fear it so?
I guess out of the mere fact of intimidation. situation. They don't understand why the anger. They can't make that connection.
But if
they can't put themselves. Go ahead.
But if you listen to what we said, we're warriors and we're competitive. So now how do they view us if the narrative is we win at all costs? And we're like, wait a minute. You're dealing with me here at home, I'm different. Or here in the boardroom, I'm different.
Can I mention this?
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Okay. This is a mantra. I say this a lot. Systematic racism. Implied racism. It's fit people's agenda to look at us as less than human.
Okay.
Right? Look at opposed to like animalistic.
Okay.
So if the big scary black guy is animalistic, then I don't have to be human to him or mean to him. I can treat him, less than human. I can shoot him because I'm scared. I can use that defense. Oh, he's stronger than me. He's bigger than me. So I don't have to be mean to him, right? Just like our women. Our women are set up where you got to be strong all the time. You can't be vulnerable. You got to be strong for your family, for, your man. You can't have a weak moment. And that plays into that systematic racist thought where it's like, they can't be like me because they're stronger. They're non-emotional. So if the police shoot them, right, then that was a reason why. It was a big black guy. That makes sense. So all of this stuff, and I don't blame like the average like white person because they're conditioned, right? You look at Mamba mentality. You look at like the big football players, and it's like that's what they think the average black person is, right? They don't look at the politician or the dad who's just out there working to provide for their family, because that will make them too much like themselves. And how can you live with yourself if they get exploited in the street if they just like me?
I would have to go back into the intimidation factor again. I mean, you can look at me and Woodsy. We do some really soft-hearted things with our daughters and our families, but I can be out in the community and be with myself, my daughter, or my family, and people I've known for years will not even say hi or anything. But if I'm with a white counterpart friend and they know both of us from school or whatever, there'll be a conversation. And I think there's such an intimidation factor and perception of not knowing who a black male is that the fear there stops them from getting to know who we are internally. Like, I've gone to school with some of these people in this community, and I walk into a restaurant and they'll barely look at me like they know me. But if I come in with my best counterpart white friend, they'll have a conversation and also address me at the same time. But it's so weird that they won't do that when you're solo. And I think they see what we've been talking about, that animalistic or that raw nature that they see from a black male. But there's so much more to us. And I think the whites' perception of us, they just need to open up. We even had a conversation with a few kids that asked Tracy and I about being a married couple and a family. We don't do anything different than our white counterparts. We have families, we have jobs, we have kids, we have careers, but all they see is the depiction of that athlete we were talking about.
Right.
Or the gangster show that they see. And they automatically think that, we're in that category. We're normal people, just like your family, your mom and dad. We go to work, we put our pants on the same way. They just don't see those
No,
things.
absolutely. You do not put your pants on the same way they do. And
yeah, because I don't wear skinny jeans.
right.
But anyway, I think that intimidation factor is so intense in people that don't know the black culture, is that they put us in that category of fear, when really, if you just took the time to get to know us, like I said before in the last panel, you might make a great friend or a family member out of just opening up and get to know us.
I think I'm just going to say, I truly believe that every black person wakes up with a question of, is it my job to educate, or is it not? And I ask a lot of my black students that, and I say, you know what, different parts in your life, you're going to have different answers, and depending on where you're at, you're going to have different answers. For me personally, I feel I take that on. It is my job to educate everyone around me on black stereotypes in general. Because when you meet me, I'm going to destroy all of them. I mean, that's just what it is. And yes, it's systematic, and there is fear. It's fear of the unknown. They don't know how to interact with me. They don't know how to have a conversation. But when they see me, I'm like, okay, I have to educate them on how it is. And it is just on how I conduct myself. It is just on how I carry myself. But I think a lot of us have to kind of answer that question. Is it our job to educate? And there's no wrong answer. Let me just put that out there. There's no wrong answer. But is it our job?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is it exhausting?
With these bags? It is. It's a constant. It is a constant process. It is always minding my P's and Q's. It is always thinking in advance. It is always considering what the outcomes will be.
Yeah.
Every single time, every single minute of the day. Yes, it is exhausting.
See, I always think about the scenario you told us previously on one of the other call-ins, where a young person was looking at you, I guess a small Caucasian child, and they wanted to touch your hair.
Correct.
And you made the decision to say, you know what, I knew that was the case. Now, you make a great point, and you take on that responsibility. I don't know if everyone takes on that responsibility, but I think you have, to a certain degree, some sort of responsibility to teach. But to go back to the initial question, I was smiling the entire time because I think oftentimes people look at us, meaning black males, black people, as superheroes because we're depicted in sports, on television, entertainment as these supernatural people. And because they don't see enough of us, obviously they're not as well educated, so they think we all can jump like LeBron James. So they think we all run so fast. We're all so big and strong. Maybe some of us are, a lot of us are. And I think that depiction, that thought process, that mindset really distorts so many people, and they have no idea who we really are, like Chad said, and they won't take the time to learn. So they just look at us as these massive superheroes type beings.
Wait a minute, Smooth. You mean we all not like this?
And I believe the superiority complex, and if you talk about white males, this is my opinion, they don't want to lose an edge to us at all. So when they see this and they hear this consistently, they have to do something to keep that upper hand because, listen, if they can take over that, there's a strong possibility they may be able to take over something else.
Mm.
You know what this reminds me of? You know what Spike Lee Do the Right Thing?
Yeah.
And he's talking to Sal in the pizzeria.
Mm-hmm.
Sal is talking about like the N-words. And he's saying, but Sal, listen, you're racist, but you like Prince. You like Michael Jordan. You like all of these athletes, right? And he was like, well, they're not black. They're, beyond black. And I just go back to, like, the greater society. Let me say that. The greater society is comfortable putting us in these stereotypical boxes. Either you're an athlete, an entertainer, or a criminal.
So if they can't put us into a narrative, we should be afraid then?
We should.
Yeah, I shouldn't.
Well, that sounds good. We shouldn't, right? But here's what happens, though.
Yeah.
You get stopped, right? And let's say you got a counterfeit bill, right? You can lose your life, right? You can be practicing your Second Amendment right, and get killed for a regular car stop, right? So I don't know what the answer is. Like, I was having this conversation with my wife, right? And she's in a position now, like the mentality, like the atmosphere is changing. white people want to really be educated.
Okay.
But there's some of us out there who are exhausted. And it's like, yo, I've been trying to educate you for the last 20 plus years. Now you ready to, learn to open up? It's like, and some of us are like exhausted. Like, yo, I don't know if I got the energy to go over it again. Right? I'm human. I'm just like you.
I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah.
I disagree. We all have a choice here. And I'm just listening to it. And once again, it goes back to the mindset. It seems like, when you're talking about educating the white male, I have to wonder if other classes of men of color are having the same exact conversations that we're having. Because it seems like we work very hard to go ahead and, project exactly how we are as black people to white people. Where other people of color, they get it and they just accept us as we are. So why do we work so hard for white people to come to understand us?
Wow.
I'm going to throw another theory out here just for thought. At some stage, I really believe a lot of white people are fearful that we will take over. And that fear really just takes over to the point where we don't want to understand. We can't understand. I won't allow myself to understand. As much as you try to tell me and teach me and go over whatever it is, I can't get it. Because if I really understand this, it makes sense that you're basically just like me, and you can do the same things I do. It's a level playing field, and if it's level, from what I've seen from you guys, what you all do, I don't have a chance. So it can't be level. So I don't want to. I can't fathom the idea of getting it.
Well, it may come to that, because as we see statistically, there's more of us as far as people of color than white people right now.
Right.
And the only thing that's separating us is the wealth gap. If we had the same wealth and political connections, I think, they would be in a world of hurt. But that's coming, because we have more black people who are becoming more politically astute. And, we're learning more about passing down generational wealth. And so it'll just be a matter of time.
And that's the biggest fear, Wes. That's what I believe. That's the biggest fear right there. Obviously, they say, well, listen, they're great in sports, entertainment, we love that. We can't allow them to improve in certain areas, so we just can't get it. I can't understand it. I don't care how well you explain it. I don't want to get it.
For those of you who are joining us, you can catch us all on my podcast, iHeartTunes, if you listened to it earlier. If you're just now tuning in onto my YouTube channel, Dr. Paul Dyer, Grandmaster, or you can always replay back this. But what we were talking about, for those of you, and I got a comment here, is just about we don't have to be afraid of black men. Black men should be more open to put us at ease. And how do you guys want to answer that?
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry.
Black men should put us more at ease so we don't have to be afraid of them. That's summing up the question.
So my response to that is, and obviously it's a white person who says that black men should do more to put them at ease. It's like, well, how do you do that? Like, I'm just being myself. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a business owner, right? I got the same pressures that everyone else has. Mortgages, college tuition, what are we doing in 5 years? Are we going on this vacation and that vacation? Same thing that everybody else does. So what else could I do?
Yeah, but if black men, or like even Smooth said earlier, if we are the ones that are the warriors and we're always leading and we're trying to be our best self, right, Chad? We're trying to be our best self, and all of a sudden my best self puts you out.
That's the fear, Doc.
Yeah.
They're afraid.
They are afraid. I think, just like David said, I think we have the responsibility to have to educate. I don't know about putting people at ease. I mean, other people are in the same situations. We're the same. We're doing different things daily. I think it takes upon their individuality to do some research and some education and get to know other people of minorities and different colors. I don't think that when I step outside the door that I should be thinking to myself, I'm going to meet so many white people today and I should put them at ease. I mean, I don't mind educating them on certain issues like David was talking about, but I don't think that we should wake up every morning and saying, oh man, we got to put people at ease. They should be doing those things for themselves and learning things and getting involved with other cultures and learning different things and diversity. I mean, I love diversity, so when I step outside, I love Latino culture, Chinese, Japanese. I love learning all of those things because it makes me a better person how to interact with the world. And I think they should be doing the same thing.
Chad, my question is, how many of them are really doing the research? How many of them want to do the research and who are willing to learn?
Exactly.
Because if they learn and get that information, it gets really scary. So I believe a lot of people have taken on, Caucasian people have taken on the thought process, I do not want to know. I know enough, and this is what I'm going to go with. I'm going with what I have already.
Yeah, because if they know that research, I think it opens up the door to what possibilities we have in their world. And I think that's a big fear.
But we know what they know. The history has been skewed or just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
But they don't know that, Doc. It's been in the history books for long. It's in school. You learn it year in and year out. This is the history, according to everyone and what we learn in school. The other stuff could be a conspiracy theory. How could that be? We didn't learn it in school. Again, I'm playing the advocate here.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I think about? Like, let's imagine all your life, right? You were only taught up to the letter D in the alphabet. And that's your belief system. You think the alphabet goes from A to D. Then you get out your environment, and then somebody says, yo, there's a whole nother alphabet. It's E to Z. You don't believe that. Your whole belief system has been set up from A to D, right? So if somebody's trying to convince you, they're showing you evidence, everything in your soul and your power is saying, nah, can I believe you? You're telling me that I've been taught wrong? Like my forefathers, my father and my grandfather and their forefathers have taught me wrong. Why would they do that? So everything in their holy world, they start to question. That's not comfortable for a lot of people. Right. So now you're telling them, I now have to look at black people as just like me. They're not put in these three little categories. They're uncomfortable with that. I don't know about you guys. You ever been a black friend to a white person? And you now represent all blackness? And they asking you these questions, and you're like, nah, we don't do that. Or, yeah, I'm married. I have a wife. I'm faithful to her. They're like, you mean you don't have baby mamas, and you're like, that's exhausting.
Here's the key word I'll throw out also, fellas. We're very resourceful. That's a scary word for people because we adapt well. We get resources from different areas. When we're in a bind, we usually can make do for whatever we need and what we have. And for people outside of a race, how do they do that? How do they adapt to everything? How do they make it out of that situation? How would they make do with very little with all those people? Or how? It's a lot of different things that go through someone's mind when they're watching. And I think us being a resourceful group is intimidating also.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah. I mean, because we are very resourceful. We've starting out from the point of slavery on the way up, through emancipation, we have been subjected to a lot of harsh things in life, and we've persevered. And I don't think, if they were put through the same test that they would be able to. And I just think the way that we've been conditioned, we will make it.
So
I had a conversation with a white friend concerning privilege. He did not understand it. was trying to explain to him. I said, listen, man, as a white male, you do have a certain amount of privilege. Well, Chris, I've worked hard for everything I've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's understandable. You started at a different point than I did. So you were ahead of the game when it started. So that was a privilege that you weren't aware of. And it goes back to us being so respectful. And a lot of times we're starting off with less, and before you know it's all said and done, the last thing they want is for us to be even, let alone get ahead.
I'm getting. I got a question for you here, and this comes from a viewer, and it says that we're all human beings, and we all should be equal as human beings. Now, did we address that already, or is that still? See what I mean? We still get the same questions, but it seems like it's not. We're not being understood. Am I not getting it, or have we already covered why it's been misunderstood?
I want to make a point real quick. Is that I'm mixed. I'm half black. I'm half white. And when we start talking about white privilege and we're all human beings, we should all be treated the same way. I don't get my 50% white privilege. When people see me, they see me as a black man. So I don't get my 50% white privilege. I don't get that. So you may look at all of us as being human beings, but I have 3 times as hard of a work ethic that I need to show and display you guys that I am. And we talked about this before. Being a minority and being black, you have to work harder to be respected and earn that respect. So I don't get to start with my 50% or my quarter or whatever part white I am, because I don't look white. So you have to understand that there's not an equality basis. You know, we may be all humans and we should be looking at each other as all humans, but we're not treating each other as all humans.
Yeah. So let me give a brief history lesson. Right. After slavery, right, there was the Sherman Act, where they had captured land from the Confederates after, like, the Civil War. They were going to give it to black folks. It's called 40 acres and a mule, right? They were going to do it. They started giving out this land so black people can actually have a leg up. They could be self-reliant, right? 6 months into this, Andrew Jackson decided he didn't want this. So he revoked that. So they took that land away from those freed Africans, those freed black people, right? So they never really had a leg up. Then you throw in Jim Crow laws, where nothing was equal, right? So even education, right? They made laws where anything that you did, you can get arrested, so they can put you back into bondage. Like the 13th Amendment, you could go research this. So all through, like, after slavery, there's been systems put in place to hold black Americans back, right? From the education, we all know, Wes, I mean, Woody, you're a teacher, so you know, like, a school system in inner Chicago is totally different than suburban Chicago, right? That's systematic, right? So what happens is, everyone, like, this illusion, work hard, work hard. If you have like 100-yard head start and we both work hard, I gotta be super athletic to one catch you and then pass you.
But Malik, what I think
but
what
we work hard before we can catch them sometimes.
But I think what people miss on is that we speak to the person who's answering that is non-minority, like we're speaking directly to them individually, and they're not understanding the collective whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say this, right? If you set up a system, right, that's unfair from the beginning, and then you're told that we're all equal, right? So we all start this race, and, you know, listen, you don't know that you have this advantage, right? But you've been given this gift. You have this advantage, all right? And all you've been taught is, like, the American dream: you work hard, you will prosper, right? And you've been conditioned with that. right? So of course you're going to be upset because there's this stereotype that, oh, maybe they're lazy, maybe they didn't work as hard as us. How come they had children out of wedlock? All of these different factors that you're fed to make up for the reason that you're doing better than your black counterpart.
Right.
So I get it, and it's kind of listen, I talked about this, but it's made so we can fight each other. Because God forbid, listen, when the slave master was profiting off of the backs of the slave, right? That white landowner, that poor white landowner, was suffering. So they had to come up with this concept called whiteness. It was like, oh, you know what? You're white, so you're kind of just like me, even though I got wealth and you don't.
Right.
So we'll put something under you, the black person. Like, you're better just because your skin is white. You're better than this person, and then we'll actually put you over them, right? Here, poor white guy, we'll have you oversee them. You can monitor them for us, right? But ultimately, that landowner, that 1%, is making all the money. So now we just fast forward that to today, and you got corporations making the majority of the money, and we're still fighting for the crumbs. And it makes sense to have us fighting against each other, because God forbid we all come together and say, wait a minute, it's not a black and white thing, it's a class thing, it's a economic thing. Let's come together and fight this. And God forbid that ever happens.
So we've been on for a little bit. I love having our conversation, Black Healthy Men conversation on Black Coffee Conversation, real talk about real issues. One of the things I want to touch on is I think we're still the only race that can hang itself. So, or we're the only men of race that we can hang ourselves and be ruled a suicide when it just doesn't seem possible. I want to talk about that issue about what do we do now? Do we do who we are, or do we do what we can do to fight for equality, or is equality different than justice?
Wow.
I think the politicians should take this.
I knew that.
You knew it was coming.
I did. I was like, yeah, watch him say Woody. Say that again for me. Say that again.
Is equality different? As black men, do we fight for equality or do we fight for justice?
Now, here's the thing.
There's a thing.
Here's the thing that I think about justice, right? So, justice is subjective to the victim. So, when we say we want justice, it is a very unclear, non-tactile thing that's out there, justice. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? Hammurabi's Code, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so, yes, in America, it is somewhat defined what that justice is, but there's a lot of subjectiveness to that. But when we say equality, now it's putting us on the same level as X.
Right.
So there is a template for equality. I laugh because I have a conversation with my daughters all the time. They're like, well, that's not fair. And I said, do you want fair or you want equal? Because you got to know the definition of either one of them. Because sometimes you're going to want fair and sometimes you're going to want equal. Sometimes you're going to want that subjectivity. And sometimes you're just going to say, I want the same as my little sister. So you better figure out what you want. It's a very difficult thing. For me, I think it is, I want equality. I want what's due to me based on the work that I have put in. I don't, the justice part, no. And I think that's kind of been a mistake with black people. I mean, sometimes we look at our legal system and we're saying, we want justice, but like we don't really know what that justice is because it's so subjective. When realistically, homeboy shot up whatever, and he's sitting in the jail right now. This person shot up whatever, and they're dead. we want equality.
Right.
We want everyone to have their due diligence. We want everybody to have their due justice. So, yeah, I don't know if that's an answer. And I don't know if it's correctly.
I agree with the equality. Yeah, that's on that end.
Hey, can I mention something? Let's take education, for example. Right? That we know, and if we don't, we shouldn't. So there's different levels of education, right? You can send your kid to a boarding school, right? You can send your kid to an independent school. Then you have, and I'm just kind of talking about in New York, right? Out of the independent school, you then have like the specialty high schools, right? And then you may have your community high school, right? Where do you think the ultra rich are sending their kids?
Private school. That's not a
They're sending
secret.
them to boarding school. If they don't send them away to boarding school, right, they're sending them to the upper echelon independent schools, right? The specialized schools, like, you know, in New York, like the bigger, really specialized school, you have to take a test to get into. That means you have to be on a certain track from actually, let's take it back from elementary. From kindergarten, you got to go to a specialized kindergarten to prepare you, right? So you could get into a great elementary school. They're going to keep you on a track to actually excel into like a middle school, and then you're able to take and pass the specialty test to get into the specialty high schools, right? If you're not fortunate, if your parents don't really understand that system, you end up in your local neighborhood school.
Public school.
Right?
Yep.
Exactly. And listen, as someone who's in that environment, in that community, they're teaching on a different level.
Right.
One level, they're teaching you how to think outside the box, how to actually learn and digest information and strategize. The other one is teaching you how to regurgitate information, how to memorize information and regurgitate it back. So when we talk about equality, right? Equality will be all of us get educated on that same level, that same like boarding school level, and let's see what happens, right? So Tristan Walker is like, I don't know if you guys know about, you know, Bevel and all of that stuff, but he's a tech guy. He went to independent school, right? Prep for Prep, ABC, all these different programs, right? He went there. He really was taught how to learn, right? How to think outside the box. He's an entrepreneur in the tech industry. There's probably less than 1% of us in the tech industry. And if you look at all the black folks that have really done well, you start looking at what school did they get trained in.
Right.
And you see a disparity in that. So for me, that's where we'll start at, the education. I want equal on the educational front, you know?
Well, again, I think it breaks down to all of you guys said great points story when it talks about education. But again, we want equality because when you have equality, it leads to proper justice.
Mm-hmm.
The reason the justice system is so screwed up in our eyes is because oftentimes we're not educated well enough to understand the system, to realize it's not quote-unquote just. Because I've seen on different occasions where you have two different people do the same crime or do something similar, one being a Caucasian man, one being a black man, and the time is differentiated totally different. Because, quote-unquote, the person who's represented, one isn't as educated or well-educated to understand. So you want to be equal so you can understand and be on an equal plane. It goes back to, like I said, resources, and that's where your resourcefulness comes into play. But the fear of us becoming equal, and I believe this, and it's a criticism, a smoothism, whatever you want to call it, they do not want it. And they'll refuse, some of them, to learn and listen.
Wesley,
Yes.
what do you think?
No, I believe equality in that aspect. I think it's important to have equality first. You know, everything, at least that's everybody's on the same playing field, have that clear understanding of what equality actually means to them as a black person. And then we look to go ahead and change things within the justice system because we have a better understanding of, you know, what direction that we're looking to go as far as what justice actually is, or how it should reflect within our communities.
Chad?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with equality. To me, I always refer back to athletics all the time. So if you got one football team and another football team, and you're both on that football field, you have an equal chance of winning. And the person that, the team that out coaches and outplays, you win that game. And I think every athletic aspect to life, you should be put in those situations to have that fair playing field. And if you have that fair playing field and you work hard, you should be able to get to those points where you need to. In the education that we just talked about, in business, in life, you should have that fair playing field. And how much work ethic you put in, how much time, effort, those things should be available for you to succeed at, instead of having the stipulations and things that are keeping us from getting those things with the systematic system that we have right now.
Hey, you know what? Let me just mention this. So, two things. If we take Chad's point, right, you got two football programs, right? But one program has the elite weight room, right? They got personal trainers, right? They got a nutritionist, right? They got all of this stuff. They got more coaches, so you get more individualized, workouts. But then you got another program, weight room is shabby, right? Kids, come and eating fast food, and they both take the field, right? And I say the talent is equal. One has a clear advantage over the other one. And that's kind of what's happening in society. You talking about hard work, but everything is not equal.
Yeah.
Right? Let's have an equal playing field, and then let's talk about, hard work factor. And then the second thing is, in our schools, it's police presence. I've never been to a boarding school. I've never been to a...
They had cops.
They had cops.
They had cops.
They had metal detectors.
Right.
Well, you got to start your day taking out all your chains, taking off your belt,
Your
taking off your shoes just to get into the building, right? To start your day. What are you preparing these kids for?
Yeah.
What are you mentally preparing them for? Right? So once again, it's that illusion. Everything is.
Go ahead, Woodsy.
Let me challenge one thing. I'll challenge one thing, Malik. So you got two teams, and one weight room is better than the other. I submit this. I think the difference in who wins is how much pride the kids take into the school.
Yes.
So if you are, the story of the underdog, I love the story of the underdog.
Yeah.
So if you have pride, if you have a kid or a bunch of or athletes or a team or whatever, and they have pride in their school, and they believe that they can take Goliath down, they may not win, but it's going to be a hell of a fight.
But we know from our age, an underdog was a drug addict.
True. But then later on, did he have pride? Did he have pride in himself enough to say, I need to do better by myself, my family, and my community? And I think we're getting there. We're starting to have, more pride in our race and in our culture, what have you. And once we have that, we're going to be so powerful, it's ridiculous.
I kind of agree with you. I not kind of agree with you, Woodsy. I really do, because I was thinking about, as you guys were answering about equality or justice, I think we could throw them both out the window into a historical book now. I think now the only thing we can do now forward is pride. And that comes from the things we're doing now, the mentoring, all the teaching. I think that's the only thing we can do, because we cannot we can do our best to combat injustice. We can do our best to develop equality. But you know what? It's kind of like don't let the referee call the game. You do what you got to do to win the game. And the only thing we can do to win the game is, I think you're spot on, Woodsy, is about pride. Because it's what we bring to the game. Because the other stuff are just rules. But you're not going to win that game for me. I'm going to win this game. I think that's where I really believe in right now. I think it's a pride. And how we develop pride is what we're doing now.
Yeah, but you know what, though? That story is a great story because it rarely happens. That's the exception, not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like, the underdog rarely wins. So when they do win, it's a huge story. Who's the kid? And I'm going blank right now. Made the Notre Dame football team. They made a movie about
Rudy.
Rudy. Come on, how many Rudys are out there?
How many black Rudys out there? Wait a minute. How many black Rudys out there?
Hey, who knows?
A lot of black Rudys.
But that's why they made the movie about him, because it rarely happens, right? It's the exception, so they want to put that out there to give everybody this belief that one day you too can do that. Even though the system is set up against you, you never know. Maybe you'll be Rudy. You'll get lucky.
So the other Rudy story is, and this is great. It's about the Philadelphia Eagles guy. What's his name?
Oh yeah, exactly. What?
Who? Vince.
Vince something, yeah.
What's his name? Who played the character?
Wahlberg.
Yes. Right. Do you know of a black player that made that spot, or not that particular spot, but a spot like that?
Like athlete, like just in general?
Yeah. That we know of. Not that you could probably personally know someone, and there could be personally someone out there that's done it and who played 1 or 2 seasons and did their thing, because football is only a 3-year season sport anyway. Most athletes only play 3 to 5 years anyway. That to make a team, to do a team, and there's not many.
Well, I'm drawing a now, but I'm pretty sure there are more quote-unquote black Rudys than white Rudys, because it goes back to our athletic prowess, where this guy, he walks on, or this guy just comes in off the street. I know I'm an Eagles fan. Last season, we had a number of defensive backs who basically were just off the street, because we were losing defensive backs all over the place, and guys were coming in there, filling a role. And oftentimes in football, that happens.
Yeah.
Like a guy like Dennis Rodman, take his story. Wasn't highly recruited, went to a JUCO.
Yeah.
Just honed his skill, being just one of those glue guys, hustle type guys. He wouldn't have been a quote-unquote 5-star guy you recruit. But those are the type guys you think of, a Ben Wallace in the NBA. Those type guys who just really work hard.
The hustle guy.
Yes. And I think they're more prevalent oftentimes than we see in the white community. But you made a great point also with the pride. And I'll say this until I'm blue in the face, and I've said this before during one of our calls here. We have to learn to police ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's part of taking the pride. We can't depend on quote-unquote justice. We can't depend on equality.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make it for ourselves. It starts in our homes, in our communities, and then it can branch out. But it really starts with us. These calls are great. These Zooms are great. But we have to make a conscious effort to police one another. When we can do that, we don't need anyone else really telling us what to do. We talked about a group off the air that does that so well. I can't understand some of the things they're doing right now, but obviously they're allowed to do it because they police themselves well enough. They don't need to be bothered.
Right.
And we that stage.
I know we don't want to go long, and I want to put this in the bee in your bonnet because it's coming up. The new Black Panther. They're starting to develop a role in something. And now you're going to get asked the question, how do you feel about the variable, the X, and this group or that group? Is it our responsibility? And Woodsy kind of answered before with but they don't speak for all, so you have to signify that I speak for me. And then it goes that way. That's our next conversation on our next conversation next month. You guys, you're thinking. What do you got before we take?
I wasn't looking in that direction.